16th of January 2019. If I could ask everybody who speaks during the course of the meeting to please use their microphone, because the recording that was made at the last month's cabinet meeting, the audio was horrible. So we're testing it again this month to see how it sounds. So please do that, that'd be great. So this item is to receive apologies for absence. Councillor Tender.
Speak into the microphone.
Are there any declarations of interest? No? Right, to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on the 5th of December, pages 1 to 6. Go through the page by page. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6. Everyone happy that's a true record? Great, thank you.
Leader, can I just say, if I can come back, I wasn't actually at this meeting, but it says here on page 3, it is understood that Councillor May, as a county councillor, had asked for an assessment of the traffic in Hagley through one of the lets. Could we put the Worcestershire let there, please?
It's just full time. Thank you for that. Next one is the minutes of the overview and the scrutiny board for the 3rd of December. And these are for noting. Page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, and page 13. All items are resolved, so those are for noting. Agreed? Thank you. Do we have a special one now? Minutes. We'll leave it. So we also, for the open scrutiny, we have the supplementary documentation, which is the minutes of meeting of the Open Scrutiny Board held on the 3rd of December, which is pages 1 to 4 and related to the fees and charges we did earlier.
I think you mean the 16th of January.
Sorry?
Not the 3rd of December. Supplementary on the 16th of January.
14th of January should be. Sorry. It says 3rd of December. Yeah. So those are pages, page 1. Duly noted. That's all it is. And then there's the appendix from the finance and budget. Yes. Thank you. The next thing is item 5. Homelessness grant of the flexible support grant. Councillor, you taking this one on?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Mr. Allen did sort of kindly offer to come in and talk about it. However, he's recovering from the virus, the man flu that everybody seems to have got. So I'll try and trundle through it. It was interesting. We presented this to the ONS at their last meeting, and there were one or two interesting comments regarding this. However, I do think that I might just have to beg your indulgence for a second, actually define what homelessness is. There are some of the councillors that seem to think that a homeless person is a rough sleeper. Now, a rough sleeper is a homeless person, but a homeless person can be somebody that's living in a hostel, or living in a bed and breakfast, or basically phone you up and said, Uncle Kit, I've had a big falling out with parents, I need somewhere to stay for a while. They can be classed as homeless. So the couple of the councillors seem to think that when we sort of say we have homelessness in Bromsgrove, there are people sleeping on the streets. That is not the case. We have nobody, as far as we know, as a rough sleeper in Bromsgrove. So I will repeat this at council. The because I think that people need to know what homelessness is.
Just
Okay.
to let you know, there is a motion in on that.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So we can answer that. And I have noticed there is something in the local paper talk about homelessness, but it seems to be sort of heading more towards county than in Bromsgrove. What we've got in front of us is something we see every year. We have got grants, which basically homelessness grant, flexible homeless support grant, and homelessness reduction. If you turn page 16, 17, 18, we have various amounts of money which we are offering up to the various organisations to help support us. Now, these are extremely important partners to the council, and we obviously try to give as much as we can, depending on how much grants we've got. If you look at the homelessness grant allocation, again, there seems to be some confusion. I mean, if you look at on 3.8, table identifying projects the housing strategy teams recommended for approval from the homelessness grant, you've got young persons pathway water to support to prevent homelessness to over 100 young people. This doesn't mean there's sort of 100 homeless young people. We're just supporting people to prevent them becoming homeless. So 100 young people have come and said, we have a problem, can we deal with it? Therefore, the problem is being done. Then obviously we have St. Basil's, the basement, who are extremely important to us. So really, in front of you here, it is fairly simple as you read through it. We are also dealing with our partner BDHT, as you can see, 3.9. Again, this is something that they help us with, and again, we need to encourage good relationships with BDHT. Now, somewhere here, which I have missed, so we have the recommendations. Number 2 recommendations. The Cabinet note that the 2019-20 grant funding implications be included as part of the medium-term financial plan report to Council in February 2019, subject to Council approval of the budget, that the Council resolve that as follows. The initiatives in 3.8, 3.10 and 3.11 recommended by the Strategic Housing Manager be approved to receive allocation of funding, and the delegated authority be granted to the Head of Community Services following consultation with the portfolio holder, the Strategic Housing, to make any unallocated grant during the year or to make further adjustments as necessary to ensure full utilisation of the grants for 2019-20 in support of existing or new schemes. It is set out, it's fairly simple, and I'd like your backing.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mary or Sherry?
Can I ask a question? Apparently people obviously have a problem in understanding rough sleeping and homelessness. Do you think it might be an idea at some stage to actually define that on paper so they will understand and not bring it up as homelessness when it's not?
I can't see any problem with that, but I will stand up in council and give a definition.
Okay.
If you think we've got an idea, I'll actually put Wikipedia definition of homelessness and rough sleeping on. Absolutely, I'm very happy to do that.
And we do have one person who's actually, that's his choice of life, he's got a very wealthy family near to me.
Oh, so I know you mean he actually owns a house, but he does prefer to wander around and about.
So,
but he's the only person, whether you've actually defined him as a rough sleeper, I think there's a bit of a question mark, but we do know who we're talking about. But he does actually have accommodation he can go to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kit. It was just to advise Cabinet that there is the bi-monthly corporate performance report coming in the very near future, which focuses on help me find somewhere to live in my locality, and there is an opportunity there of providing some more detailed information about the pathways and supports that we give, and possibly that report will be an opportunity to make those definitions so that there is wider understanding of the different and varied support that we give both to homelessness, but also the definition and support to those who are rough sleeping. Thank you, Chair.
Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you very much. Mine's not a question, Leader. Mine's a comment. Just think we should place on record our thanks to our partners that we work with who provide this service. Thank you.
Anything else? Are we all agreed then to resolve the item as proposed?
Yep.
Sorry?
You provide for me.
Thank you. Right. Next one is item 6, medium-term financial plan. Who's Jen? Very sensible.
Thank you, Chair. So, members have in front of yourselves this evening the draft medium-term financial plan. So this is the update report to January. Officers will continuing to work through the current deficit that's projected to ensure that when we get to the February Cabinet and full Council meetings, we will ensure that we've got a balanced budget for 2019-20. Deb and Beck are here to talk through the implications of the new pay model, because those are the only two recommendations from this evening to go forward to full Council. So if it's okay by members, we'll pick that up at the end of just going through the budget report. So just working through at 3.2. So officers constantly consider the impact of demand on services, so both in additional income that potentially can be generated, which is one of the things we've talked about around the fees and charges, but also additional costs and pressures that they may have either to sustain current service delivery or to enhance service delivery in the future. And the way the report has been laid out, the format of it is very similar to what members have seen previously, where we've got the appendices around unavoidable costs, which are pressures to maintain current service delivery, and then we have revenue bids or capital bids, which are to enhance service delivery in the future to the community. We also have one of the appendices which includes all of the various income levels that we're looking to meet for 2019-20 and any other savings or efficiencies. What we've done at 3.5, which is slightly different to what we've done in previous years, and granted that the figure at the moment is changing, we have that table that shows 625, that is the original, when members agreed the original budget for 18-19. You also forecast where we thought we'd be for 19-20, 2021 and 21-22. For 19-20 we assumed at that time there would be a budget pressure of 625,000. What the table then shows is how that 625,000 has moved. So all of the numbers at the top are the increasing or decreasing pressure. So that moves through from forecast gap of 625 through the unavoidable cost, the bids, the savings, negative revenue support grant, down to new house bonus at the end, which is the current deficit that we got. It's slightly less than that at the moment, sort of as of today, because we're still working on it. But within the report, there's £109,000 pressure. What we've then done is explain to members all the various elements of those additional pressures or savings, and there was a couple that I just really wanted to mention. Initially, the sort of spike, the spike that says savings and a minus 133, and as we'll see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 bar along, and a minus 133 that takes the pressure of 1060 down to 927,000. Now that ties back to the appendix, and it reflects any of the savings or additional income officers have identified so far. And they're identifying it against the next spike, which is the 654. So within the original budget of 625, there was an assumption that we'd make £654,000 worth of savings, but we hadn't been very clear, we hadn't clarified exactly where they were going to come from. So what we're saying is against that 654, we've made 133, so officers are continuing to look at where else they can make additional savings. So we don't have any unidentified savings in the budget plans, which I think is really important, particularly with financial pressures that the Council has moving forward. The other one that I wanted to mention was the negative RSG, which shows a minus 740. Members remember we talked about the fact that government has assumed we would start paying back £740,000. We have had the draft settlement, of course, there's not a final one for the next week or so, but the 740, we have been told that that won't be payable now, so we've taken that out. In addition, you'll see third from the end, the Section 31 grant. That's a grant that we get from government to refund us from any of these small business rate relief schemes that the government puts forward. So you'll see that that's a change. The concerns we have, which members will see is on the next page where we talk about the bullet points, council tax income, there's a pressure there of 40, and also new homes bonus, there's a pressure of 82. So at the moment, while we don't have very many planning applications going through, we have a pressure both in revenue terms on the income coming in from those applications, but we also then see a knock-on impact from council tax and also new homes bonus. New homes bonus is the one that we are worried about for the future, and members will see it 317 and also 318 on page 25. There is an assumption that we won't be receiving any new homes bonus from 2019-20. So 2019-20 will be the last year of the new homes bonus scheme, and we'll be receiving then our 295 for 4 years and any other legacy payments. So there is a significant drop in income, and members will see at the table on the top of page 26, the 109 for 2019-20 going up to 1.4 million by the time we get to 22-23, and the majority of that is on the back of new homes bonus disappearing over those years. New homes bonus and additional borrowing costs. On the appendices, Chair, appendices on pages 29 onwards, we have a small number of unavoidable pressures. The one around the elections is due to the fact that often we do get joint elections, so we can then pick up funding from other agencies that we're having those elections with. So what we do now is we put that in as and when we know about them, but we are looking to make sure that when we do the next budget round, we will pick one up for 23-24. And we don't know when the next election will be. So, yes, there might be a sharing council.
Well, what's the news to run?
If I can then, Chair, if I can just take members to Appendix 5, little 1, and then 5, little 2 on page 33 and 34, and ask Deb to just talk to members through that, because those are the ones that will be recommended to Council.
Thank you, Jane. The paper on page 33 sets out how Bromsgrove proposes to introduce the second part of the 2-year pay award that was agreed nationally. The new pay spines that have come into effect bring in additional 5 pay points at the bottom of the pay model. As such, it means that Bromsgrove needs to look at our pay model. So the pay spine is set nationally, but our model is set locally. So we looked at our model to ensure that it is fit for purpose for us as a business going forward. The changes that are proposed do impact on staff, but no staff will see a pay cut as a result of the change in the pay model. Some would see an immediate increase, some additional headroom, some would see a smaller than expected increase, but nobody would have any money removed from them. In terms of the costs, they are outlined in the paper for you, and because it is part of the collective bargaining process, subject to members' approval, we will be going forward to formal consultation with the unions with a view to reaching a collective agreement. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. So, Chair, that was the end of the medium-term financial plan. If members have got any questions?
We've never had, it's just on the joint pay thing. I don't think we've actually done that before with the budget. I just wonder if we address that.
If I can, through you, Chair, it's because we haven't had a new. The pay policy will always come as part of the final medium-term financial plan report. It's always an appendix. That's the pay policy. We haven't had from whenever I've worked in local government, we haven't had a position where the national pay negotiation has done anything other than an increase in staff. We're having to put additional increments into final points into the pay model, so we're having a revised pay model. We need to do that now so we can start that consultation with unions. You will still get the normal pay policy report as part of the medium-term financial plan when we do the council tax setting. So it is completely new from what I know, and I think from most people, we've not seen that before. But I think, just to be clear, sorry, Chair, I know we've called it joint pay model. This is the pay model for Bromsgrove. It isn't, if Redditch agree to come into the Bromsgrove one, that's in their gift as their councillors. This is the Bromsgrove model with the additions that we need in the Bromsgrove model.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick question on new homes bonus? So I know we began to have a drop-off anyway with the reduction from the 6 years to the 4 years, but is the shortfall that you're seeing now mainly as a result of our lack of building?
Through you, Chair, so the 82,000 that we've got currently as a pressure for 1920 is the lack of building to the numbers that we anticipated that we would get versus the numbers that are actually coming through. Other than that, the chunk of it will be the fact that we're losing new homes bonus in its entirety by 22-23. Well, there is an intention that this is the last. All we have so far is the last new house bonus money will be 2019-20. You would hope that it gets replaced by something else, but at the moment we haven't got clarity, along with clarity on business rates, along with clarity on Section 31 and anything else, Chair. So we've kind of done the worst scenario.
I'd just like to thank Jane and her team for wrestling with this. We look forward to the final version. But I think that there are a lot of unknowns over the next few years. So hopefully, I think, as Jane said, this is the projections over the next 4 years are the worst case scenarios. So we hope that actually with savings and perhaps government clarity on certain issues, things won't be as bad as they would appear today. But that's unrealistic optimism.
Any other questions?
Through you, Chair. So the recommendations were just around the pay model. So for members to come and recommend to Council the approval of pay model as included at 5.2 to be adopted and implemented with effect from the 1st of April 2019, subject to, of course, the commencement of the formal consultation with the trade unions. As Becky said, because of the benefit that the staff will receive from that, we don't expect to get particular issues with it and concerns.
Thank you. So the recommendations are as on page 21. There's 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. I'm happy to propose them. Everyone agree? Agree. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. Fees and charges.
Thank you. Through
18,
you,
19,
Chair.
or should that be 19, 20?
Yeah, 2019-20. Yeah, 19-20. Yes, members may feel that fees and charges have been done today slightly. We've had a number of meetings with budget scrutiny. We've had the cabinet all-member briefing as well to talk through the fees and charges. Fees and charges were done quite differently this year, which seems to have helped in the members' considerations of the budget scrutiny and at the member briefing for cabinet. We haven't just done a blanket RPI increase. Officers have looked at every single charge that they have as much as they possibly can. It's a bit of an iterative process over the next couple of years, really, to see whether services, so from a fee point of view, services should be subsidised by the council, breaking even, or making a surplus to offset other overhead costs. Where there is absolutely no other rationale around a charging price, the RPI at 3% has been used. But when members look, you can see that hasn't been used very often across the fees and all the fees and charges. If members would want, we can now just, as we go through them, just mention the recommendations that have come through from overview and scrutiny. That's okay?
Yes.
Chair. So the first block that had a change was on the business transformation. So that was around the naming and numbering of existing properties, and what members were asking was that the naming and numbering of new premises and naming a new street, all those could double in charge.
Comments?
Good idea.
I've been supportive of it too. Leader, I think it's an excellent idea in terms of the fact that we have a member of staff who can cover the costs with that.
If not covering the costs, I suppose. Right, so that puts it up from
Charges. Yeah, so it'd be 560, 282. So we'll just get all of those double as part of the minutes. We'll make sure that, and then when we get to council, we'll do a separate table of just the new ones, Chair, that have been agreed. So we can get that
recommendation
as a supplementary out to
of
council.
the housing.
So So then we go down, so that was the first one. No queries on the community, on the customer access and financial support. On strategic housing, so all of the strategic housing charges on page 43, would be zero. Members aren't looking for any charge, increase in charge across those.
Can I just clarify, you said there'll be no charge or no increase in charge?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was looking in the middle, yeah, so where it's percentage change, that would be a zero. Yeah. Yes, no, not there'll be no charge, so all of those will be a 0% increase in charge. On private sector housing, the fitness inspections, as Judith mentioned at the pre-briefing, we are looking to increase those to £150 per inspection. So again, we'll put that through.
I think we're all agreed.
Nothing on Lifeline. That was just a discussion around the key safes. Nothing on environmental services other than just to change the wording of free to no charge. Happy with that. And that was on the CREM. And then we get down to page... And that was the mechanical sweeper. So the mechanical sweeper per hour, we've moved from £30 to £50, the mini sweeper, and also to include a tipping charge, the associated tipping charge.
Is that,
Yeah, disposal costs, that was it.
is that right? Because according to that, it's the same as we charged in April 18.
That will be for the mini sweeper per hour that says 30 at the moment. That will go up to 50, so that will be the same as the HGV.
The HGV one is
The sweepers in general will be £50.
Okay.
Plus the disposal costs.
And someone will be carrying out an exercise to see how long it takes a sweeper to load.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've got to get it.
No issues on legal and democratic at all, no changes on there. Nothing across the leisure services. Is it?
Oh, we've got to do waste. Green
Oh, sorry.
45 for next year, 2020-21. Garden waste charge.
Yes. Garden waste charge £45. £45,
yes.
£45.
Because we're doing it for next year.
Gotcha.
We always do it a year ahead. That stays at 2021. As Mr. Gary says, we've got to do it for free.
And nothing else on the fees and charges, Chair.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Apologies, Chair, I didn't pick up one of the recommendations from Open Scrutiny was we talked about the medium-term financial plan. I'm sure that we can pick this up in the future. It's just to have clear identified savings. Well, we have taken all of the unidentified out, so that is something from an office point of view. We're just doing it anyway. So
Okay.
that's a recommendation.
So
that's fees and charges.
Yes, I'm happy to recommend the Council approval of all fees and charges, including Appendix 1 plus the amendments.
second, Margaret. All agreed?
Can I just ask one question before? I should have asked that. On the hire products,
Which page?
It's I can't quite read it. It's the higher products, higher smoke alarm per week under couple of activities, 47, 45. I wonder if we can just expand that slightly, because somebody I'm sure is going to ask that you get a smoke alarm free from the fire brigade, but these ones refer to a serviced fire alarm.
they're hardwired.
And so it's hardwired, so it goes off. It's the same as having an alarm by Red Care. I mean, this is a bit bald, and somebody might say, hang on, if you're having a smoke alarm for £1.30 a week, you can get a free one with a load of process by charging. But this is actually different from the one for fire brigade.
So is this a wired in?
It's a wired in, it's a hard
I
wired in.
didn't want to say that.
Yeah, so it just needs a little line next to it saying, just describing what the product is, I think. It will just stop silly questions.
If I can, through you, Chair. So the council agenda that's been published has got the original cabinet papers in. So what we'll do is within the extra page, we'll also just add that one in and say this is what when we finally publish it, we'll have the additional information on it.
Right, okay. Are you happy to agree the recommendation just proposed by Grant? All agree? Ready? I might have said that already. Some of those days. Right. Item 8, council tax base calculation.
It's a bit much. I'm going to show this evening, Chair. Council tax base calculation is, as it always is, it's a technical calculation that we have to make around our boundary equivalents to enable us to then set our council tax for the future and set our budget. We have to have this agreed by the end of January at Cabinet, and it is an approval at Cabinet. So members will see that the boundary equivalence is to be set at 36,714.2.
Thank you. I was going to ask, is that gross one minute? And I turned the page. Right. Everybody happy to agree? Those schedules? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 9.
Oh.
Yes.
Please. Thank you, Chair. So the capital strategy and treasury management strategy and half-year treasury update. This is a new report. We now have to put forward a mid-term financial strategy and follow the CIPFA guidance. So it is slightly different to what members have seen previously, and it also includes the risk management approach that the council has. So we have to have this agreed by the end of March. So the recommendations, capital strategy is an overarching strategy. We're looking to use the flexible use of capital receipts. Members may be aware that about 2 years ago, government agreed that we could use capital to fund revenue as long as it was generating savings in the future. So, for example, things like the new system, any new systems that we may have, if it's going to realise efficiencies for the future, we can use capital receipts. We need to spell that out now in our capital strategy, so one of the things we've done is that. And also for members to approve the treasury management strategy. Apologies, it is quite an in-depth read. It has to be set up in this way. There's a template that's sent out, and we have to literally drop all of our numbers into that. So treasury management is about managing our cash flows, our borrowing and our investments, which unfortunately our investments are getting less and less, which is a bit of a shame. There's some general information on page 96 through to page 97 around the general context, external context outside of accounts, but naturally at the moment that is fluctuating on a daily, if not hourly basis around where the financial position of the country stands. But then what we've got, starting at page 98, is the impact on Bromsgrove District Council. So just very quickly, I don't profess to know a huge amount of all the treasury management. Chris is the one who's your man on this, but in general terms, the General Fund CFR is our capital financing requirement. So that's the kind of maximum level of financing that we'd be going up to. Now members will be aware we have got the £20 million worth of borrowing that potentially we can borrow. But we have approval for that subject to the business cases. So ultimately what we'll be saying is by 31st of 3rd 22, we as an authority, our maximum capital financing requirement would be 42.6 million. But we can't have, from a local authority point of view, total debt should be lower than our highest capital financing requirement. So you can see that at the bottom of that same table, 42.6 goes down to 35.8. So our level of borrowing would be around 35.8 should we borrow all of the money that's in the 20 million, and also should we still have the borrowing costs associated with the Bromsgrove Sports and Leisure Centre, and also this building that we, as members are aware, we're paying off over the period. So there's a couple of, there's a liability benchmark which just is similar to that one we just talked about, as you can see, the 36 million, just to ensure that we as an authority are still, we're still at a liability, that we're still borrowing at a prudent level. I think this is where we are on all of this. It's about, is the authority borrowing at a prudent level to ensure that we can afford our borrowing moving forward. At the moment, which is on page 99, just the first line that says borrowing strategy, we've only got, when this is written, £1 million worth of loans. When we did the financial strategy, capital strategy at the end of last year, we were at 12 million because of where the borrowing time lies. Because what we do is when we get all our accounts tax in, we pay off our debt, and then we pick up debt for the future. So we're constantly managing that debt position to ensure that the council is getting the best value for money in its debts moving forward. The majority of our money would be borrowed from the Public Works Loans Board because we get the reduction, the discount on the charge. We do look to invest when we can, so if we have got any spare funds from council tax, we do make sure that we invest as much as possible. And you can see on page 101 where we look to invest our funds. AAA ratings, so we get ratings on generally a weekly basis from our treasury management advisors on close. And as you can see, the majority, our money, 5 years, will be sitting in AAA rated. And as you can see, the reason that goes down, 2.5 million only over 6 months in an A minus. So generally, we'd be looking to sit in an average of around A. If we do invest with government, we don't have any timeline on that. We have a maximum limit, and we don't have a maximum limit, sorry, nor do we have a maximum timeline, because we feel if we invested with the Treasury, we wouldn't like to think that we have any concerns about their liquidity moving forward. We have just some indicators on page 104, which is just saying what our level of cash available within 3 months, which is 2.5 million. We would like to ensure that we have got funds available, so these are our limits that we set ourselves. And also then just working that through, we've got some interest rates forecast from Arling Close, which are our, as I mentioned, our Treasury advisors. Again, this is where they were not finger in the air, but that's where they felt from a national point of view that we would be. And you can see on the table on page 109, our external borrowing 10th of December when the report was written, our portfolio is only £1 million, which is the table of 109. We just have some various other ratios then through you, Chair, which are ones that we have to set as a benchmark at the point of September. So that's our sort of half-year review as where we are. I mean, you know, there's no concerns from ourselves or our auditors as where we are from a financial point of view on borrowing. And that's it really, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Any questions? I have one. Just page 98. It's been a long day, so I might have got this totally wrong. Just the definition of usable reserves.
So usable reserves should be funds that we can use generally on a day-to-day basis to fund any more of a balance. So if we've got any loans that we could use those reserves to offset, it's not that we're using those reserves to pay for capital debt necessarily. We are just using those on a day-to-day basis. I can check with Chris if you want.
I was curious whether balances were in there anywhere. You know,
No. I'm fairly confident they're not. Our balances now except 4.7, aren't they? I'll check with Chris, Chair, and then I'll just let you know.
No, thank you for that. Are there any questions or just recommendations?
I think just recommendations. I mean, this is quite a technical document, and it takes a lot to get one's head around it. But I think basically it's reassuring as to our financial prudence. Thank you. Obviously.
Thank you. So the recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, 1, 2, and also note a half-year Treasury update. All agreed? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you. Awesome. Can I assume that nobody wishes to talk about the confidential papers that are there, presumably fees and charges, and also confidential minutes from the overview and scrutiny board on the 3rd of December to read take them as read? Thank you very much. That concludes the meeting for